Okay, without any further ado then, I'll introduce our first speaker is Kyla Burns. She is a biology teacher for Johnston. She is also associated with the Teaching Channel as one of their lead connectors and will be helping with our communities of learning. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Kyla.
All right, thank you. So like Rob said, I teach at Johnston High School. I teach biology, which is just kind of the general class to our whole population. I teach a zoology class, and then I also teach AP Environmental Science. So kind of a broad range of levels and in-depth content that we cover. So question for you, just so I can get to know kind of who I'm talking to. How many of you are life science teachers? Okay. And how many physical science teachers? All right. How many 6, 8? And then 9, 12? Okay, and I know there's other people that fit into other categories that you're here to kind of maybe spread on to other people. But my background is life science and it's high school. But what I'm going to share with you could definitely be modified into a physical science classroom and down into a lower level classroom, because I'm just going to be sharing some different strategies I have for students to share some technology presentations to each other, kind of getting away from the poster walk. So when I started teaching, we didn't have a lot of technology in my district, and we had maybe a project that the kids did, and it was on paper, and they walked around, they looked at each other's projects, and then they sat back down. And as we've become more and more technology integrated, we wanted to take that, I don't know, kind of 2D learning process and put it online and make it multimedia embedded, and we wanted to try to figure out the best way to do that. So that was the big challenge for us. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time. If you have an iPad, many of these are apps. So and I'm pretty sure most of them are free unless it's changed since I downloaded them. I guess I should have checked that. So maybe just a little bit of time to grab, if you have an iPad, ByBoard, Doceri, Novio, Padlet, and Blogger. This is just a side note. I don't know if you necessarily want to get that. If I have time, I'll talk about how I'm using that. But at least the first 4. If you have a computer and no iPad, you can go to the Novio and the Padlet as a website, if you just type in Novio and Padlet. And Doceri you can look at online, but it doesn't have a lot of functionality. Your iPad is probably the better one to use for that. So those are the apps that we're going to look at, or the computer programs. I'll give you a second to look at those. Have any of you used any of these apps before, or any of these programs? Oh, good. Oh, yeah, one over there, but she's with me, so. And the names of the apps are on the agendas, which are on your table tent. It's also on the agenda that Rob directed you to ahead of time. So if I switch this slide, you can still see that the names of the apps are kind of under my giant face picture here. Wherever Rob went, thanks for the picture. It's a good one. Right under there, it says ByBoard, Padlet, Doceri, and Novio on these tents. So I'm going to switch the slide, but if you need to see the names of the apps, they are on that table tent. Okay, so it's always been a challenge for us at Johnston to try to figure out how we can get our kids to share what they've understood in a collaborative process. We really focus on productive group work. So instead of all of the kids working to create a task as a whole, in our biology classes, we really try to focus on kid A has this part, kid B has this part, kid C has this part, and they integrate in together to create a final product so that there's some individual accountability towards it. And it's been a really big challenge for us to try to figure out how they should show their knowledge. What should they use to show their knowledge? So we've taken on the task of every unit trying to find a different strategy for them, and then giving them maybe a little bit more leeway in choosing which one they use as they learn each of these different tasks. So we are a one-to-one iPad school. So the kids have iPads in the classroom, all of them, and the other desire was for us to figure out a way to utilize them more efficiently in our classrooms for other than just internet searching. So we, as a team, decided that we are going to approach different multimedia project presentations. So first one is ByBoard. So if you have it, open it up. If this is not one that you can necessarily get on your computer, so I apologize if you don't have an iPad with you. But ByBoard, and what I'm going to do for each of these is kind of say how I use it in my classroom. So it's going to be a little life science oriented around the actual product that the kids are making. And then I'll show you how to use it. And then your minds can start spinning on how you would implement this into your classrooms, because that's what teachers do. They take something and they start running with it. So what we do with ByBoard is in our evolution unit, the kids take a species, and we've been looking at climate change, and we've been looking at how things have changed over time. We've looked at the evidence for evolution. And now they need to describe how evolution works. And one of the NGSS standards is they have to, there's some modeling involved with creating a description of how an organism changes over time using the 4 principles of evolution. So we have a task where the kids kind of have to tell a story of an animal that's threatened by climate change and what's happening to its habitat. And if its habitat continues changing in the direction it's changing, what potentially needs to happen to the animal to adapt to that change. And there's a lot of statements about, okay, this doesn't necessarily mean it's going to adapt. It might die off and go extinct, and we have all those scientific conversations behind that. So there's 8 slides that the kids have to make, and each of them is responsible for 2, and they build on each other. So historically, we used a poster. We just got a big poster board out, and we made them draw 8 boxes on it. And then each of them was trying to draw on their one box. And if you've ever seen like 4 kids trying to cram around one poster, and somebody's upside down and somebody's right side up, and it was kind of messy. So we wanted to go digital, and we wanted to find a different strategy. So ByBoard is what we've been trying, and it's a trial and error. And ByBoard actually just released a new version like 4 days ago, and I just opened it up last night to practice. I was like, this is all different. This is all new. And it's way better now, so it's great. So yeah, do you have a question?
It says on here that the old one is going to go away at the December of this year. So
and the old one is ByBoard,
HD, well, mine says HD.
ByBoard HD. So ByBoard 3 came out, and I just updated mine last night. And I was so excited. I had to text one of my teaching friends at, well, what time were we texting? 9 o'clock last night. ByBoard's changed. This is so much better this year, and the kids are going to love it. And they're ByBoarding with me back and forth from their houses. So, so how ByBoard works? Well, this is how we use it. We had a group of 4 kids. Student A created the ByBoard. So they went into the app. They started a board, and it's basically an online whiteboard that's collaborative. It's pretty neat. And I know there's other whiteboarding apps out there, like interactive whiteboard. This is the one that, after testing many, we liked. We have that student then share the meet with the other 4 people in their group, because it takes away some of the problems of all of them getting online and who's sharing it and all that. So we take responsible person and say, okay, you make a meet, share it with your partners. Then once they're all in there, they can work within their workspace, and we make them make 4 pages in the app, and I'll show you what a page looks like in a second. So each student there's an 8-slide storyline, and each student has 2 of them. So then they go in and they write their name on which slide is theirs. But the importance of having them be on a collaborative whiteboard is, if it's a story, they need to see each other's work. And it's really hard for them to go home and be working on their slides if they can't see what the other person ahead of them wrote in the storyline. So this allows for them to be apart from each other, but still see what everybody is working on. It allows for audio, images, typing, handwriting. It does have a video conference feature that sometimes my students enjoy. Like they'll sit at home and they'll hit video conference and they'll talk to their friend at their house about their project that they're working on. I tried it last night at the new version and it wasn't working. So maybe that was my internet connectivity or something, but I know my students have gotten it to work. Challenges with this: set a password. Do you know why? Yes, because the first year we did not set a password and we had 3 biology classes at the exact same time running, and kids would get on each other's ByBoards because you can see there's a function that says see all local meets, because they call it a meet. And then they would pop into each other's and then they'd write things to each other that they didn't know who was writing to them. And then all of a sudden slides would start disappearing because that's what high schoolers do to each other. So we learned you have to put a password on it. And you have to remember your password and you need to share it with your whole group so that you know what your password is. It can be a little bit laggish if there's a lot of them working on it at once. So somebody might have written down something and then the next group or the next person might not see it for a few seconds. And that usually isn't a problem because they're typically not working on the same page for our project, but they can even work on the same page if you wanted them to. And we have, like there's times where we have 4 biology classes running at one time in different parts of the building, and that kind of causes a little bit of slowdown, but it hasn't been too problematic. So a student example of this one, this is just the puffin that one of my groups did. So each kid had a different slide and they're talking about the environmental change, and that's maybe not the greatest of pictures, but this kid did better. So, and they go through and describe it, but they can see each other's story and they can add their imagery to it, and it's pretty good. I'm going to show you really quick on the iPad what ByBoard looks like if you don't have an iPad with you. So when you get into it, you can start a new board, and I guess it's called the AEA now. And it looks like this. So I can write on it. I can change my writing. I can erase. I can type. And I can change my size and my font. And then you can add in. There's an ability to add in maps from Google Maps, and you can add in pictures. You can take a picture directly using it. You can pull something from your Dropbox or your Google Drive. I haven't checked yet to see if you could put a video in it. Last version you couldn't. So that was one of the downfalls, is if they wanted an embedded video, they couldn't do that. But and then if you wanted to look at what the sharing looks like, there's 3 little dots on the bottom, and it says tap to start the meet. And now, if you wanted to join this meet, which you're welcome to, it's number 115406. And if you have other people join that meet, then they can begin adding onto this as well. So we were doing this back and forth between our houses last night, testing it out to make sure I was good to go for today with it. And the permissions are on this same page. So if you wanted to set your passwords, that's all on here. And then when they're all done with it, they can export it as a PDF. So it's pretty easy for them to hand back and for them to share with you once they're done with it. Okay, so. So the question was, how do you get to the place where you can join the meet? You got to go bump out back to home, and then you have to hit the join meet. And then the meet number is what you'd put into there, and I can go back if you want. The meet number is. Figure out how to get back to home. Yeah, did you figure it out?
No.
Oh, the 3 dots on the bottom.
Yes.
Tap those. There's a little house down in the very bottom corner. Yep. I did not put a password on this one, so no, there's no password. 115406. And disclaimer, we do this with 4 people. I've never tested its limits of how many you can have on a ByBoard and what that looks like. And that's something to play around with in your classrooms. I mean, if you want a whole class ByBoard, have at it. I don't know. Ooh, there we go, see? So that's kind of a fun a fun one for the kids. They like it, and anytime you can give them something that's novel and new, you know, they get excited by, oh, look at this, I can talk to each other and we're over there. And I don't know, it creates some happiness in them. It's one of those things where I suppose you could overuse it and then it's not nearly as fun. But one project that we do it with, they enjoy it. One thing that the kids kind of didn't like with this is they had to draw images for their project. And the old version, they really did not like drawing within this app. So many of our students hand drew and took a picture and embedded the picture, or they drew on a different app, screenshot it, and embedded that picture. There's ways around things like that. So they didn't like that functionality as much with this app. Do you want to add anything, Sarah Kate?
The groups did that. They still collaborated their main storyline on the app, and that was the idea. We wanted collaboration at school and at home, and so that was the main purpose of it, and the picture was just something they could add.
Yeah. All right. So that's ByBoard. Do you have any other questions about ByBoard before I switch to the other one? Yeah.
Do you know of any differences? Like we're one-to-one, but they have laptops. Do you know of any differences that this can do that like Google Slideshow can't do?
I have not used Google Slideshow, so I guess I can't speak to it. Can Google Slideshow do like handwriting and?
They can insert a drawing and
Okay.
then do it, but they have to like write on the trackpad.
Is Google Slideshow just like Google Slides, like the PowerPoint?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
fine.
I got it. Okay. No, other than the drawing, which is something that the iPad, it's a difference between the iPad and the laptop, is the ability to handwrite and circle and annotate is much easier on this than Google Slides.
Right.
Yes, and we've had students that would probably prefer Google Slides because that's just how they approach things, but, and we kind of let them have choice when they get to some of the other projects, but this one we're just trying out different strategies, and they seem to like it with the ability to draw, the ability to have conferences and stuff like that. But I'd say the only thing is handwriting, to me. Yep. Okay. So the next one is Doceri. And I asked this already, but I just want. Has anybody used Doceri before? This is a really cool app, and you can end up getting into your desktop and using some desktop controls, but we've mostly used it as an app so far. Doceri is a way for you to handwrite and record voice over your handwriting and create a video. So we use Doceri for two purposes in our school. We've had students use it as a presentation project to make a product, and we also use it for flipped classroom purposes. So if you're a flipped classroom person, this is a pretty cool one. So how we use it in our school, in our classroom, is instead of teaching mitosis in terms of like, here's all the stages of mitosis, and this is why cells divide, we've taken a cancer unit and we've kind of NGSS storylined it for the kids to diagnose a patient with cancer. And they get fictitious patients, and we spent a long time making, we have like 12 patients now, 12 patients, fake charts and fake biopsy results and fake CT scans and all sorts of stuff that the kids get, and they have to analyze it. And in the long run, they need to figure out what cancer is, how we know their cells are cancerous and what that means. And then the end product is that they need to create a presentation to their patient, fictitiously, saying, hey, person, this is what you have. This is how we know you have it. So kind of a claim and evidence type reasoning. This is what it means for you to have cancer, and these are the treatments that we'd recommend, and this is why we recommend those treatments. And it all ties back to cell growth and cell processes. So the final product and what they work on throughout the whole semester is the presentation about their patient, or to their patient. So it's kind of like I am the doctor, and I am presenting to you as my patient. And they have, this one is a little bit more choice. They can use whatever app they want to, but Doceri is one of the ones that we offer up. So how Doceri works, the students create an account, and then they can add images, they can draw and annotate, they can add text, they can type on it. And Doceri is nice because it has this control bar that allows for stops in your handwriting. So I might write something. I'll demo this in a second. I might write something and I'll stop it. And then I'll write something else and I'll stop it, and I'll write something else and I'll stop it. And what that allows for with the playback mode is that it will have kind of pauses in your drawing. And then once you have your drawings all figured out, you can go in and record voice over your drawings. So it's kind of like a live action annotation. And kids can make YouTube videos, and it's kind of like screencast, only it allows for a little bit more handwriting. So challenges with this one, the appearance of it is a little bit more daunting for the kids. So when they get into this control panel, there's a lot of buttons, and they can be a little bit, and it takes a little bit of learning time to get used to it. There's a little bit of a learning curve of how to do it. This one is not as collaborative. So I can't have two people working on the same Doceri at the same time. So when we had kids do this one, they either passed the iPad back and forth, which doesn't meet one of our goals of collaboration with our apps, but kids got around it in different ways. Or else they did their part, the other person did their part, they stuck them into iMovie and they laced them together, which is a little bit of a rigmarole, but the way that the app works was pretty nice for what they were doing, so we let them use it. And then it has a video file, so sometimes that's hard, depending on your school district, how video files are transferred and figuring out that process. So here's an example of Doceri. This one will have volume on it. Sorry, it's cervical cancer, so this is one of the students, the two girls put this one together.
The cervix is an organ in the female reproductive system. Due to your symptoms, such as vaginal bleeding, suggested that the issue was in the reproductive system, and we narrowed it down to there. Tests show that your cancer started in the cervix, but has spread to other areas, such as the bladder, kidneys, and lungs. Because your
And that's probably, you get the gist of it. So they had all these different tests and things that they were looking at. And this allowed the kids to point out different parts of it and add the audio over it. And that was kind of a neat way for them to show their learning versus giving each other PowerPoints or doing presentations. They can just video themselves. And then, like I said, that was like a student use of it. Just a side note, it's really good for flipped classroom if you get into that. Like sometimes I'm gone and what I need to explain for the kids is something that I don't really want the sub to explain to them. So I will really quickly make a Doceri the night before, and then all the sub has to do is press play when they get in there, and I will pull up like, find this in your iPad and I'll screenshot it. Go to this link and I'll circle it. Open up this document, fill in these using this, and then the sub plays it, and the kids hear me saying it, and it's been really nice for sub stuff. Okay, so let me show you what Doceri looks like really quick. This one. So that's kind of, this one's kind of crazy. Maybe I shouldn't show you this one. This was our digestion unit all summarized on one page. So this is a little bit different. This was not a student because I don't have any student exact projects on here. But in this, I'll start a new one so you can see how to do it. There's a plus sign in the bottom, and it gives you a blank screen. And all the function, it's not going to show you. Hey, Sarah Kate, do you know how to show? Oh, okay, that makes it challenging. I forgot this. When you plug in your Doceri, it doesn't show the kids the controls because it just wants them to see the product. And I know there's other apps that do that, but I completely forgot until I plugged in that this one can't do that. So you're not going to be able to see what my controls look like, which is unfortunate. But when you go into it, I can show you this. I can pull up one. Let's do lab planning day.
Okay, so today's goal is you're gonna get yourself
Oh,
some
it's not gonna
lab
show
report
it.
work time. So
Boo Doceri. It'll show that one. So if you look in this one, I have these little stop controls that I can press forward and it'll pop up each step of my handwriting. So I'm just hitting kind of the play sign. And then what I would do is I would sit and write something, and then I would add a stop, and then I'd write something else, and I'd add a stop. And you can put pictures in and circle and highlight, and then when you play it back, you can see where those stops are. And then the recording aspect of it, at the very top of it, if you have it, there's a little button that says record, and then you can just start your recording. So it's recording me right now, and then when that's all done, it'll save it in my projects. Just start your recording. So it's recording me right now, and then when that's all done, then you stop the recording. So it's pretty straightforward once the kids get into it. I wish I could show you the controls, but if you have it in front of you, you can kind of see it. It's pretty good for individual student projects. It's a little harder for collaborative student projects. That's just one of my observations with it. All right, so that's Doceri. Novio is the next one. And Novio we also use as an option for the kids for their cancer patient projects. And it was a different alternative choice for them to present to their patients. So this is interactive, because the requirement was they had to be speaking in their presentations and they had to have imagery. So this covered both of those requirements. So how Novio works, Novio it's mostly just a good way to add audio to a PowerPoint with an embedded video of yourself if you wanted it to. So students create an account. They can upload PowerPoint slides or slides from Google Slides or something from your Dropbox. Then as they look at the app, they can record audio over each of those slides. And then they can share the link to you. So the nice thing about this one is it's not a video file anymore. It saves lots of the emailing a large video, which doesn't really work sometimes on our servers. So you'll get a link that says the students has made a Novio, would you like to view it? And then you click that. And then you can go view what the kids made for you. Challenges, this was another one that collaboration is not the greatest on because more than one person can't be working on it, but they can both open up the same one if they share each other's account information. They just can't work on it at the same time. And it doesn't really allow for annotation, no circling or highlighting. You'd have to do that within the images themselves. So here's a Novio example. This is another one of the cancer patient ones. Oh, another cervical cancer. Look at that. Aren't you lucky?
Tissues located further away. We are here to explain all that we can about the situation and present to you some of your options.
Our first step was to take a cell biopsy and determine if your cells are behaving like cancerous cells. What we discovered was that your cells are experiencing mitosis at a much faster rate than normal cells. That means that the cells are separating constantly with no control, resulting in damaged cells multiplying and ultimately a tumor. In normal cervical tissue, only 12% of cells are actively experiencing mitosis. In your tissue, 36% are in mitosis. As you can see in the picture, the cells in my...
All right, so that's probably enough of that one. So that allows them to annotate over it. It does allow for you to put a little video of your face in it. So if you really want to have your students watching you write on a whiteboard and look at a PowerPoint slide and you're making this for them, more as like a flipped classroom tool, that's an option. I think the kids don't like to see themselves talking, so they turn that option off. But this is what it looks like on the desktop. So if you have a computer, you can open Novio up on a computer and it looks just like this on the iPad. So I imported my raccoon enrichment project from zoology into here, and then I can turn my camera on and I can record. I'm going to get away from my camera. I can record over it. I can stop the recording, and then I can move on to the next slide, and I can record for that slide. So it's just a more simple version of how to get audio into a PowerPoint, because sometimes the kids struggle with audio in PowerPoints, and this is much more seamless than that. So questions on Novio? I guess I didn't ask for questions on Doceri either. Do you have anything that you're curious about or questions about how this could be used with kids? Is that good?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So you upload a PowerPoint presentation?
This.
Do Google Slides?
Yep. You can when you hit. So if I go back out. When I go back out here, you can upload slides or you can just drag them into that area, and it gives you kind of other options. I think on the iPad, it gives you a direct Google Slides choice. Here, you might need to take your Google Slides and put them onto a desktop if you're working off of a laptop, and then upload them from there. But yes, any type of slide you can do. I think you can also, oh, there's some practice slides in there. Yeah, continue without slides. So if you wanted to, and I don't know what you do, if you want to add like images to each open frame and then talk as you go and like build it within here, you can do that as well. But we've always had the kids build it somewhere else and then upload into it. Turn my camera off because I don't want that going on over there. So that's Novio. And Sir Kate, what's the new app that you just found that might replace this?
TouchCast. TouchCast Studio.
TouchCast Studio is, it's one that we might actually bump this one out of our list this year and have them do TouchCast Studio instead, because it's a little bit, it's similar, right? Mm-hmm. We haven't had a chance to play with it, so I didn't really want to present it, and she just told me about it this morning. Thanks. It allows them for a little bit more interactivity than just recording voice. So that's another one to look at if you're interested in stuff like this. Yep. Yes, if you have the free version, I think you can only have 5 Novios in your library. For a student, it's not the end of the world because they can get their one project done, and then once they share the link and you've graded it, I suppose they could just delete it off their account. For you, if you wanted to have multiples, you'd have to pay or have your school pay for the updated version. I've never had a problem with it. Yeah, Rob?
Are you able to download it as a video now?
I think maybe in the paid version you can, but in the free version, they just send you a link. So that's another challenge of this one, which the link is good because you're not sending video files, but then the link is bad because then you don't have a hard file of it. And if it's your like flipped classroom, maybe you invest in taking it, but there's other apps that do similar things to this one. This is just one that we thought was really easy for the kids to use. And lots of them chose this one.
And also Screencast-O-Matic.
And Screencast-O-Matic does kind of a similar function as well.
The kids really like this one because it was easily go from Google Slides with it, which they liked, right to Novio.
Yes, yeah. Because Google Slides was the collaborative aspect for them, and then they could bump it up. And as long as they were all there recording, then it was pretty seamless for their collaboration. Okay, so next one is Padlet. Padlet, it's like an online sticky note board, but it's much more than that. If you've looked at this one before, it's kind of a way for you to have students dump a bunch of information online really quick that you can project up on the screen. So if you're doing things in your classroom where each student has maybe a jigsaw component and you want them all to see what everybody's working on, Padlet's a good one for that. We use it, this is an AP Environmental Science example here, but the way I used it was an option. So I gave them an option of how to share their information, and Padlet was one of them. And they had to do a pitch for a local pond, and in AP Environmental Science, they did all the water quality testing and the biodiversity indexes of this pond, and we're trying to figure out how to increase the bluegill population. So they had to make this group only had 3 people, but they had to each come up with a proposal item and then back up why that proposal item would help increase bluegill populations based off of the different ecosystem components of the pond, basically. So This Padlet was nice because it allowed for the kids to collaborate because they can all work on the same Padlet. So we're back to an app where they can all integrate in, unlike Doceri and Novio. It's more like ByBoard where everybody's looking at the same thing. Padlet allows for a lot of multimedia. I can stick a video in it, an image in it, and I can type. It does not allow for annotation or circling or handwriting. So there's always seems like one thing doesn't get encompassed into some of these apps. But this one you can't do handwriting in necessarily. So that's one of the challenges. Padlet you can do on the iPad and you can do on the internet. You don't have to have the app for a kid to post to it. So we're a Moodle-based school. So all of the kids' handouts are on our Moodle pages. It's kind of like Google Classroom or something like that. And they just click a link that says period 1 Padlet and it opens up and they don't need an app or anything like that to just add a Padlet to it. If they want to create their own pad, then they have to create an account and then invite each other to look at it. So I'll show you what that looks like. So this is an example from my AP Environmental Science group. And you can kind of see that they have their names on who put which component. So they had to talk about the pond and the niche of the bluegill. And then each one had a different cycle. So phosphorus and nitrogen and carbon. And then each one had to talk about a different aspect of energy flow in their system. And then each one had to develop a proposal item for how they think the bluegill will work. They embedded a little video of aeration, so you can see kind of what they were looking at for aerators, and then they embedded a little picture of a pond plant that they wanted to put in to kind of mitigate some of their nitrogen problems. So this group liked it because they could see each other's ideas, and this is another concept where they needed to see what everybody else was saying to make the project cohesive. So the Padlet allowed for that. If you are in Padlet, let's see if I can go back out. I'm not in the main. I think I'm going to switch to my app. If you're in Padlet, you can just create a space, a Padlet, and then when you're there, you can invite users to come into your Padlet, and then when they're there, all they do is double click on it, and it will make a little box. And in that box, you can write and you can add your images. And there's settings that you can make them freeform so the kids can put them wherever they want to, or you can snap them to a grid and they'll all be in line with each other. You can make it so it's a stream. So we've used this for a couple purposes. Like in my zoology class, they do this mystery animal where they have to read a description of an adaptations of animals, and then they have to try to draw based off the adaptations. So this was a really easy way for me to have the kids just toss their little silly pictures up, and then this is what the animal, this lemur is what the animal really looked like, so that we as a class could see instant feedback of what everybody was drawing, and they just screenshot it from their iPad and popped it onto the Padlet. That's Monkey Joe right there. Okay, so that's Padlet. It's a nice one. It's easy. Do you have any questions on Padlet? Any curiosities about that one?
Can you link it to Schoology at all? Do you know?
I don't know. You can. All of them may have a shareable link.
Okay.
So, and you can set your. It's a lot like Google Docs where you can set your permissions. I can share it with all. I can share it with the people who have a password. I can share it with people who have just the link. So I think, like, I link mine to my Moodle page all the time. I just get the shareable link, toss in Moodle, the kids click it, off and running. When they make their own, they share with each other on their own. So that's that one. And then I do have like a little tiny bit of time. So I'm just gonna toss up, this wasn't on my plans, but it's something that I've been working on and I really liked it. I've been using Blogger as a way for kids in my AP class to share some of their learning. And I like Blogger because digital communication is becoming bigger and bigger in our society, and blogs are where people are getting more and more information. So teaching them the skills of blogging and what it it's like. Were kind of one of the goals that I had for my AP Environmental Science kids, and it gives them a place where they can share their work with more of a wider group of people. Like they've been sharing with each other, and their parents have been looking at these. So in Blogger, and I'm not going to do a whole lot with showing you how to work Blogger because it's a little bit more complex, but I would love to help you if you're interested. In Blogger, what I did was I created a page for my EP class, and every lab that we do that is a major lab, I assign a different kid to be the blog writer for it. So we went outside and we did, well, this was our nitrogen cycle where we had some fish in our classroom and the kids were monitoring nitrates and nitrites in fish systems. And this was the student blogger for that one. So she talked about what they did, what they learned, and they had to embed some pictures. We did a primary productivity lab, and we went out to the pond and did a trophic pyramids lab. And this allows them to then go back as we review and refresh what they've learned about before each test. They can read about the labs that we did. So this is the first unit's labs. We had 3 of them. And I have another kid who's writing a blog right now for it. And then I embedded like some little personal things. So just this week we did an I Can Make a Difference blog post where they had to do some reading about some consumership products that are maybe not the greatest for the environment, and they had to choose one that maybe they could use less of and blog about what they have chosen and how they're going to minimize their use of it and why that's important. So I don't know, it's kind of cool. These allow for video embedded products, pictures, obviously text, and it's kind of collaborative. Like they all can't work on the same blog post, but they can work cohesively as a group to create a product. So that's Blogger. And Blogger, if we have like just a Google domain in our school, so if the kids just log in with their Google domain stuff, they're instantly into Blogger, and then you just need to create the page for them. Any final questions? Anything you're curious about? Good? Oh, yes.
If we want links to the different examples, can we email you?
Yes, yeah. If you want links, and you know what, I should have put them in here because we were making jokes about links to begin with at the beginning of the class. Well, Sarah Kate's presenting next. I might go into the PowerPoint and just link in some of the resources into the PowerPoint itself. And you can always email me, and my email address is on the, is it on the agenda, Rob?
If not, we can get it added.
Yeah. It's just johnston.k12.a.us. So, and yeah, I'll work on getting it linked up into the presentation in a second. And you can just email me, like if any of these projects sound interesting to you or you want to know, I know some of you, this is not your world, so you're going to have to figure out in a different way how to make these in your classroom. But if you're a bio teacher or environmental science teacher and you're interested, both of us would happily help you out with looking at some of these. Good? All right, awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.